Technology is evolving faster than ever, and hackers and their exploits are also evolving, which means that you, as a security professional, also have to evolve. Now, this channel will bring you all of the tech stuff as it happens, as more technologies come out, and we'll go through the nitty-gritty details of it. But one of the key elements is your philosophies and your traits as a hacker, and how quickly you can adapt. And obviously that's going to be one of the things that I'm going to talk about. But your ability to adapt to the landscape of technology as it evolves, as hackers evolve, as exploits evolve, as everything that happens in this world continues to grow and expand, your ability to adapt to it will determine whether or not you're going to succeed in this world of technology and cybersecurity and hacking and all of those things. And I know this isn't the most popular topic, probably because a lot of people are more interested in, how do I crack passwords and how do I get into somebody's website, etc. But I think one of the more important things is for people to really understand what the philosophies and traits of a successful security professional are, of a successful hacker, what those traits are, so that you can then adjust to the world as the world changes. So I have a couple of characteristics for you, or character traits for you, and then I have a couple of philosophies for you. And these things aren't going to be things that you haven't heard of before. Ideally, I would hope that you've actually heard of these things before, but it's important to understand how they apply to you as a hacker, or ethical hacker, as a penetration tester, as a security professional. It's just important to understand. And if you just keep these in the back of your mind as everything changes, I think you will be very successful in this world of cybersecurity and hacking and everything like that. The first character trait is going to be curiosity, which is the natural urge or inclination to want to find out how things work and break things down and kind of get under the hood, so to speak. And this is where everything starts from, right? So the best hackers are usually the ones that are trying to find a way to break something, to break a system. And the way that they do that is through a natural curiosity. Okay, let me find out how this works. Once I know how it actually works, then I can figure out what the features and these different cogs in the wheel are, so to speak. And then once you understand that, then you're like, okay, well, what if I threw a monkey wrench here? And then how would that affect the system? And that's essentially what the hacker's mentality is. It's very similar to an engineer's mentality. Like a really good engineer also has that natural curiosity. They're trying to find out how things work so that they can build them up from scratch, right? Imagine somebody who wants to build an engine from scratch in a car. That's the curiosity, the type of curiosity that you need to have so that you understand what the various elements of it are so that you can piece it all together. Now, what happens on the other side of that is that when you know how to piece it all together, you also know exactly what to do to break it all apart. And then when you expand on this, when we apply this to the concept of cybersecurity, is when you know how everything works, and we're talking about this in SOC Level 2, in the most recent malware analysis element of SOC Level 2. When you find out how all of these things work, you also learn what their weaknesses are and which pieces you have to focus on protecting, and which pieces are the most vulnerable that an attacker is going to attack. Now, again, as the world of technology evolves, as we go into different levels of quantum encryption, and as computers expand, and as people start using their glasses, right? These smart glasses, these AR, augmented reality glasses, as cars become autonomous driving cars, all of these things are new attack vectors for somebody to go after so that they can now somehow mess with somebody, mess with the system, put people in danger, etc., cost money to certain companies. And you have to learn how to protect all of those things. And it all starts from curiosity. The next trait is going to be analytical thinking. So how to critically think, right? How to look at a really complex topic and break it down into its individual parts to understand and analytically analyze, right? So how do you analyze something? And one of the key titles in security is the security analyst. It's a person that can look at a bunch of logs. Ideally, you don't have to go through them line by line. So you would look at your SIM tool or your intrusion detection tool, and then you would use that tool and analyze the reports that are generated from that tool. and then you think through them, right? You're like, oh, this person entered, or this IP address entered our network, they did these activities, and then it led to this other step, and then that led to this other step, and that led to, and then you go further along, and then you're like, oh, this is what they were trying to do, this is the system that they were going after. And then you can reverse that the other way as well. You look at something and you look at how it works, you analyze it, and then through that analysis, through the analytical thinking element of it, you're like, oh, I would attack it this way. So if I'm the pen tester, I want to go after this specific vulnerability inside of the system. And then you look at these very big, complex systems and then try to figure out how to narrow down to sharpshoot kind of a thing, to really specifically go after that thing. And then that all again, as you'll notice as we go along the rest of this, there's all of these things tied together. Like they're essentially multiple sides of the same cube, we can call it, because it can't really be a coin because there's too many traits. But there are multiple sides to this. So when you look at this, they're all literally connected to each other. They all mesh together to make the overall philosophy or the overall hacker thinking. Next, we have attention to detail. And this is one of the things that we're really, really diving deep into with SOC Level 2 and the malware analysis. When you're analyzing malware, you're looking at the finer details, the literal binary, right? The hex code. You're looking at the smallest bit of detail to find out exactly how things can be manipulated and they can be broken down. And then, of course, how you can protect them and what the weaknesses are. So the attention to detail is a really, really big thing when we're doing code. So anything that I do with the Python tutorials that we put out for this channel, for example, if you put a dot out of place, if you put a parentheses out of place, or if you put an extra dot or an extra parentheses, or you put an extra letter, it breaks the whole thing. Everything stops working. You could have hundreds of lines of code, and then one little dot out of place will make the whole thing fall apart. And that's what that means. That's the best example I can give you as far as attention to detail is concerned. And investigators are really, really good with this. You have to be. As an investigator, you have to really look for nuanced, small minutia, the little details, and then you see how that actually ends up breaking the whole thing, or how that leads to your next clue, and then your next clue, and then your next clue. So it's a very, very important key concept. And again, it kind of goes to the other piece right above it, right? Analytical thinking. So it's like if you're analyzing something, you have to be paying attention to all of the details to really find out exactly what's going on with the thing, right? So again, they just kind of piece together. They all go hand in hand together. Next, we have persistence. And this is the part that I think makes or breaks the best of them, right? It's one of those things that really is that line in the sand of what makes a really, really, really great hacker or security professional and what makes somebody who is mediocre or subpar. And it's that persistence level. This applies to everything in life. In everything that we do, you need to have persistence. You need to persist. You need to push through the failures. You need to push through the lessons that are being thrown at you. And then you just incrementally get better. Through every iteration, you get a little bit better. Even if it's a 0.1% improvement, then you're getting better and you're persisting, and then you continue to move forward. There's something called the 10,000 hour rule in the book called Mastery by Robert Greene, which is an amazing concept, which means that for anyone to become a master at something, you need to invest 10,000 hours towards that thing, and then you can call yourself a master. But usually by that time, the person that has gone through the 10,000 hours realizes that they have so much more to learn, that you will never truly ever become a master, because there's always something else that you can learn. There's always another 0.1% that you can improve and get better. And that's the concept of persistence, which is the one thing that majority of people don't have. There are a lot of people that come through the comment sections on this channel that say, hey, what is the secret thing? What is the one thing that I can learn to become a great hacker or to become this? And it's like, dude, it's not one thing. Everything feeds into each other. This one skill will teach this other one, which will teach. And if you don't have the persistence to go through all of that, to go through the process, you're not going to do it. You're not going to get there. And the greatest in the world are still learning. because they understand that there's always another level to the game. There's always a new level. There will always, and even if you're at the very, very top and you're the best in the world, the only way that you can stay there is by assuming that there's still something that you don't know, because somebody will come, a new hungry competitor will come, and they will be like, oh, this guy's stagnant, he's gonna stop, and he's already stopped. Then all I have to do is just get 0.1% better at this guy, and now I'm number one. And that's what is the key characteristic trait. I feel like that's the most important one out of everything, is that persistence, that level of persistence, and I should call it perseverance. It's another kind of the same way of saying this, or another way of saying the same thing, where it's like you persevere, you push through the challenges, the obstacles that come at you, all of the failed attempts at something, and then you persevere and you persist, and then you become a master. And that's one of the key traits. I feel like it's probably the most important trait out of everything that I have on my list. I think that is the most important trait, because that's the trait that has turned me into who I am. That's the trait that allowed me to get my black belt in martial arts, that allowed me to help some of my friends come out of really heavy addictions, that allowed me to come out of heavy addictions and to get to where I am and move into this new apartment, which, by the way, I'll try to see if I can show you what the new apartment is, but this is my first video that I'm recording inside of the new apartment. I moved out of LA and now I'm here, and it was through persistence. Like that's the thing that I'm telling you. Like the skills are amazing, right? Teaching somebody the X, Y, and Z, or the 2+2s, are amazing, and they're very, very important, but it's something that I can teach anybody. What I cannot teach you is persistence. What I can't teach you is adaptability, which is the very next thing. The trait of adaptability is probably the one thing that, as technology evolves, you will really need to kind of embrace, because there are also a lot of comments that are coming in from the members in Hackaholics Anonymous, which is our paid community, as well as just the comment section inside the channel, as well as me just listening to conversations online and in Reddit and all these different communities. People are constantly, oh, AI is going to take over and you're going to be out of the job and all these things. And it's like, okay, honestly, like really, really think about it. There have been so many evolutions in technology, and the big trait that made some people succeed through that evolution versus other people who didn't, and they failed and they became homeless or whatever, is their ability to adapt to the new evolution of technology. And so the printing press was the very first thing ever that, I don't want to say the first thing, it's probably like the first thing was the guy, the caveman, that put a rock at the end of a stick and turned it into a hammer or whatever, and that became the first tool. And then that person ended up being more evolved than everybody else that didn't know how to use the axe or the hammer, right? So that's the very first, but it's like there have been so many iterations, and I would say one of the more important ones that evolved was the printing press, right? Prior to that, they were handwriting books, and that was the only way that they could expand on knowledge and get a bunch of books out, was to literally handwrite them. And then the printing press came out, and it's like, now we can print books, and now we can create books in volume, in bulk, and the world got access to information. And another one was, the first army that ever had a machine gun that went to a war, and everybody else was still dealing with pistols. Or go prior to that, everybody's dealing with bows and arrows, and then they come up, an army comes up and they have rifles, right? The Blue Eye Samurai is like one of my favorite animes, and they have they're kind of at that sweet spot where everybody's still using bows and arrows, and then the villain of the story comes up with the first rifle, and now he can shoot people from a distance. It changes the game completely, and then you evolve from that through, and then you make it all the way to the nuclear bomb, right? It's crazy when you think about it, but it's all evolution. And so applying this to technology, applying this to what we're going through, AI is the biggest evolution since the printing press, since the internet, let's say, right? So prior to the internet, everybody was in the dark ages, as we can call it. And then the internet came around, and now you have access to information at the tip of your hands, at your fingertips, literally. And then everybody was working on computers, and then all of a sudden the BlackBerry came out, where you can kind of start doing some Googling and some browsing through a phone, and then the iPhone came out. And every single one of those evolutionary steps was one of these things where if you don't adapt to that, if you're still using the phone book, which was this big ass thick book that had a bunch of phone numbers in it, when somebody else is using the internet, you are going to fall behind. So right now we are in a stage where you can use AI, but most people still don't. You can go to Gemini, ChatGPT, Claude, Meta AI, whichever one your favorite one is. You can go to any of these and at the very least use it as a thinking partner to try to work through complex problems or through any kind of problem, really. And then there's the group that says, I'm going to get good at engineering AI. I'm going to get good at becoming one of these people that will manage the AI, that will train the AI. And that's the next stage, because with AI will come robotics, and you can either be the person that physically goes and maintains the robots, or you can be the person that manages the code, or you can be both, and you will evolve and you will adapt as technology expands. Or you fall behind and you say, oh, AI is going to take my job. I blame robotics. I blame all these things. And it's like, okay, fine. Cars used to be made at the assembly line by hand, and then Henry Ford came out and created the assembly line, and Ford became what it became. And people were like, okay, well, now I'm going to learn how to manage these machines on the assembly line. It's literally no different than all of these evolutions that have already taken place. So if you can adapt, then you'll be fine. But if you're going to fight it, and if you're going to bitch and moan about it, you're going to have a hard time. Guaranteed you're going to have a hard time. And you're probably going to be like weeded out. You're going to be filtered out, and you're going to become irrelevant, and you're going to become obsolete in the world that is it's already upon us. Like, it's not around the corner anymore. It's already here. And if you don't already have the mentality of adapting to it, you're going to have a very, very hard time. Our last trait before we move into the philosophies is this concept of ethical integrity, which is also one of those things that most people don't have, unfortunately. I want to say that maybe it's like I've been corrupted, right? I've been like exposed to some shady people, so I feel like a lot of people don't have it. But there's also like so many books and movies and examples of people just being out for themselves and being selfish and greedy and all of those things. And those types of traits will make you make really bad decisions. And you'll make the kind of decisions that might be okay, or they might seem beneficial okay in the short term, but in the long term, they're always going to bite you in the butt, as they say. So the ethical integrity concept, especially in cybersecurity, this is a very, very important concept, because that is the difference between somebody being a black hat hacker and a white hat hacker. It's the difference between somebody going to jail for a felony and somebody not going to jail and being hired by the government to become one of these amazing people, or being hired by Google or Tesla or whatever it is to become one of these amazing penetration testers that gets paid hundreds of thousands of dollars per month, and they become popular or famous in their realm because they were who they were. That ethics, your ability to have a moral compass is going to be the thing that will determine what happens to you in the long term. And this is something that I can speak on from experience, because I made a lot of mistakes in my early years, through my 20s. I made very many mistakes. I ended up in jail because of some of those mistakes, and it's an ethical issue. Like, it's nothing other than that. Your moral compass, your ability to determine whether or not something is right or wrong, is going to be the thing that will determine if you're successful in this game long term. Of course, you have to persist. Of course, you have to adapt. But if you persist and you adapt, but you are a shady person, you're going to fall down. Like, at some point, the rug is going to be pulled from under your feet. You're going to fall on your butt. You're going to get arrested, or something is going to happen. You're going to build a crappy reputation. Nobody's going to want to work with you. Your ethics are a very, very, very important concept. That's why there's a literal certification called the Certified Ethical Hacker. And that is as important of a concept as anything else. So your ethics, think about your ethics, right? And if you want to become a hacker, to do something and you already have this goal in mind where it's like, I'm going to become a hacker because there's this one person that I want to go after, or there's this one company that I want to go after. If that's your reason for wanting to become a hacker, I'm telling you right now, just quit, because you won't make it. It's too hard. This game is not for everybody. If it was, everybody would become a hacker, and you simply can't. So if you want to do this long term, if you want to be some of the best or one of the best in the world, you have to have the right ethics, because it's just too hard. And your motivation of taking advantage of somebody will not last. So that's my 2 cents on that. Now we can actually move on to the philosophies. So we talked about the traits. Now we can talk about philosophies, which is the higher level. So the traits are parts of your personality, which we can consider as your tactics and techniques personality-wise. But your philosophy is your view on this whole thing, your view on life, or your view on hacking and security and all of those things. So let's talk about the philosophies of a hacker. Now, the first philosophy is continuous learning, and I understand that it may seem similar to everything that we talked about so far, and it kind of is, because they all, again, connect to each other. But this is one of those things that now we're talking about your belief systems. We're talking about the way that you view this whole thing, life in general, as well as your profession and wherever you are. And continuous learning is a philosophy that applies to everything. You could be in sales, you could be in tech, you could be in any kind of job. You are continually learning. If you cut yourself off and you say, oh, I got my master's degree, I don't need to learn anymore after this, you are going to be weeded out. Somebody is going to beat you, I'm telling you. You always have to be learning. And continuous learning is this concept that, no matter how old you are, no matter what skill level you are, there's something for you to learn. There's something else that's out there. And one of my favorite people that is inside of our community, he was one of the very first members in Hackaholics Anonymous. I think he was even the very first member of Hackaholics Anonymous. There's a guy named David. I'm not going to give away his last name or anything like that, because I don't want to kind of mess with his privacy in case he wants to stay more anonymous. But David is up there in years. He is older than me. I would say he's older than most of the people who are in our community. He's a granddad, you know what I mean? So he is still learning. And he actually has, I think, the highest straight number, what is it called? My mind is going blank right now, but the most consistent days. I think he has, like, if not the most consistent, I think he has streak. There we go. I think he has the highest streak, if not, like, for sure he's in the top of every single day learning on Try Hack Me. And this guy, the greatest guy, super, super humble, very knowledgeable already. He's already successful, and he's still learning. Continuous learning is one of those things, especially in a world where we're knowledge workers, right? When you're a hacker and you're a security person, you're a knowledge worker. You don't need to go fight in a ring. You don't need to go play basketball or football. You don't need your body for it. You just need your mind for it. And if you're willing to continuously learn, the game never ends, which is what makes it so freaking fun when you really think about it. Some people look at it and they're like, oh my God, it's never going to end. Other people look at it and they're like, oh my God, it's never going to end. This is so freaking cool. So staying up with, to the latest trends, the tools, the techniques, participating in training, certifications, community forums, all of those things feeds into the philosophy of continuously learning. And if you can do that, then you will adapt to the evolutionary changes in technology. You will persist. You're more curious. Obviously, you're going to learn how to think analytically. Obviously, you're going to learn how to pay attention to detail, because all of those things are skill set type things that you can actually learn. And persistence feeds into continuous learning. If there was a coin, I would say that persistence and continuous learning are two sides of the same coin. So this is the very first philosophy that we have lined up today. And then the next ones, of course, are going to feed a little bit into each other. But the philosophies are actually a little bit more standalone than the traits were. The traits actually really did feed into each other. The philosophies kind of actually do stand alone, but they are in the same realm. So technically, we can say they also feed into each other. So whatever. Moving on. Next one. Proactive approach would be the same one. So being proactive would be the next one. And this is where a pen tester actually literally their job is to be proactively hunting down vulnerabilities and trying to exploit them and take advantage of them. This is where ethical hackers actually shine. This is where companies that don't go out of business shine because they're proactive. They're taking this approach towards their security actively. They're anticipating, they're looking for ways to break their own systems instead of being reactive and somebody attacks them and now they have to try to figure out what happened. Your ability to be proactive will then feed into you continuously learning, being persistent, being analytical, and all of those things. So anticipating what's about to happen. Anticipation is a really, really good keyword here as well. So anticipating the potential threats of what's going to happen against your systems, against your company, against your network, all of those things falls under this idea of being proactive. And being proactive is a philosophy. Being proactive could also be a trait, technically. I guess you can say that. But in life, you can be proactive, you can be reactive, or you can just be neutral and you can be stagnant. And I would say probably the best approach to life would be to be proactive. Seek new things. Be aggressive about what you want out of your life. Go after it, right? Don't just sit and wait for life to happen to you. Go after it and make something happen. That is what it means to be proactive. And you, by watching this video, by making it this far in this video, because I guarantee you 90% of people have dropped off because I just see the statistics. People don't persist to the end of videos on YouTube because this is a long form conversation, right? Most people just want a 10-second soundbite or something that is really, really quick on TikTok or on Reels or something like that. And they're not willing to sit through a lecture when there isn't going to be very many graphics, there isn't going to be, fancy animations or anything like that. I am just giving you straight knowledge. This is a talking head video. And if you have the ability to actually persist and go through this, this is you being proactive. So I am proud of you if you've made it this far. I'm super proud of you. I want you to drop a comment in the comment section below to actually let me know that you've actually made it this far so I can give you your kudos in the comment section as well. But being proactive is one of the key philosophies in being a great security person, being a great hacker, being a great human being in general, being a great father, being a great brother, being a great husband, whatever it means, being proactive instead of reactive as you can't help but react to some things that happen to you, but being proactive is what's going to make sure that you win at all of these things. Whatever you want to win at, you will win if you're constantly being proactive. The next philosophy is collaboration and working together with other people. Your ability to deal with people. This is not easy for people who are I would say for anybody, really. I feel like many people would rather work alone because they can be in control and things like that. There is a good percentage of people that really do like working in team environments, and I think those people will thrive when it comes down to security. The Security Operations Center is literally a group of people that are working together towards a common goal, and pen testers typically are kind of lone wolves because they just want to do whatever they can to get the job done. Hackers in general are working alone. But what happens is the most successful of them are groups. So there is something called an APT, an Advanced Persistent Threat. And that is a group of hackers that come together and they collaborate towards a common goal. Now, if you can be collaborating and be collaborative towards a common goal, then you're going to win. Together, you're stronger. So your ability to deal with other types of personalities, especially in this world, because you're going to deal with some very strong personalities. They may not necessarily be outspoken, but they're going to be quirky, let's call it that, right? So your ability to deal with people and to work with people and to see the strengths in other people and learn to leverage those strengths, especially in areas where you are weak. I have weaknesses, and I know that if I can fill my weaknesses with other people's strengths, now we actually mesh. Now we come together like a beautiful puzzle and we strengthen each other. And this is one of those things that, this is what a rope, like a really strong rope, is made of a bunch of threads that have been woven together in this very unique way, and they support each other, and now they're super freaking strong. So this is what is really, really important about understanding that this is not you just working by yourself, right? Cybersecurity and ethical hacking and all of these things are actually collaborative efforts. And even if it's just you and another person, you're still collaborating and you're still coming together to be a team, to be a unit, and that will make you stronger. So if you're not good at dealing with other people, I highly recommend you learn how to do that, because personality types are a dime a dozen. There aren't too many personality. That's probably not the right phrase. I feel like dime a dozen means that they're rare. But personality types there's like a maximum, I think like 10 or 12 different personality types. So everybody literally falls under at least one of these different categories. So what you can do is you can learn about all of them, figure out which elements of each of these personality types are who you are, and then which elements you have to get better at dealing with because you're naturally not inclined to go deal with that kind of a person. So if you're more introverted, more likely than not, you don't want to go deal with like some kind of a rambunctious, loud person. They may annoy you, they may exhaust you, whatever it is, but you need those people. They have a very, very important role to play, and they may not necessarily be deep thinkers, and a lot of times they can be. It's not that if you're loud and if you're extroverted, it means that you're not a deep thinker, but it could mean that they are lacking something that you're very, very strong at. So an introverted person working with an extroverted person is actually a really, really good team, because they're two opposites. They have two very different types of strengths, and so they come together and they create this very cohesive unit. And your ability to understand what type of personality you have, and then what type of personalities you are attracted to and which ones you stay away from, and then how to learn how to deal with the ones that you usually stay away from. Because sometimes when you're in a professional setting, when you go to work and you actually are placed inside of a team, some of the people inside of that team may not be natural people to you to want to deal with, and you have to learn how to deal with them. And furthermore, you have to learn how to collaborate with them so that you can develop a very, very strong team. And that's what this collaboration, this collaborative effort piece actually really makes somebody very, very strong, because it's not who you are necessarily, it's who do you have access to, right? So I am extremely powerful because of all of the people that I have access to that like me, that would be willing to take a phone call from me. And as a result, we can now collaborate with each other towards this really big goal that I would never be able to do by myself, but together we can actually make it happen. The next one is risk management. And risk management can apply to security, it can apply to business and technology, but it can also apply to your life. If you're driving down the road, managing the types of risks that are coming your way, if you notice somebody swerving on the road, right? Or if you're whatever, you can literally apply it to anything. You're climbing, you're going on a hike, and you're looking at one little pathway, and then you have another path, and you're like, okay, well, this one seems like it's a little bit more shaky and there's more, soft ground that I could slip on. This one seems a little bit more sturdy. That's risk management. So risk management applies to everything, just like what we're talking about here, but specifically in the concept of security. Managing risk is a really, really big one. So if you can understand and prioritize the different types of risks that are available to your environment, then you will be a really, really good security analyst or a security professional and security engineer, penetration tester. Risk management, it works on both ways, defensive security and offensive security. So if you know, as a pen tester, as an ethical hacker, you're looking at something and you're like, oh, that seems really risky for the company, that seems really risky, I should go ahead and take advantage of that. I should exploit that vulnerability because that seems to be a really higher priority risk. And if I can do that, then now we've exposed something very, very important, and we've shed light on something that's very important for this company that they need to go ahead and fix right away, because this is really, really high priority risk that is going to be catastrophic if a malicious actor is able to take advantage of it and exploit that specific risk. So that is a very, very important concept that applies to everything in life, but it also applies to specifically what we're doing, which is security and hacking and pen testing and all of that stuff. So being good at risk management and being able to look at everything as a potential risk and prioritize that risk and manage that risk is a philosophy that's very specific to security, but it's also something that literally can apply to everything else in your life as well. So this is kind of one of those blanket philosophies, just like everything else. Like everything else that we're going to talk about is also a blanket philosophy because it'll apply to everything else in life as well as security. This next one is a little bit more specific to cybersecurity and pen testing, the user-centric security philosophy, because everything revolves around human beings. The weakest link in the security chain is the human being. Technology has become more and more secure. Encryption becomes more secure. Quantum encryption has come out now. So the tech itself is not that vulnerable. It's the human being that's using the tech, the user that's using the tech, that is the most vulnerable link in that security chain, which means that social engineering and all of these things are actually really big pieces or a big attack vectors for malicious actors. And they're going to try to take advantage of humans and their flaws and their weaknesses as human beings. So user-centric security is one of the key philosophies that applies very specifically to our world of cybersecurity and hacking and everything like that. And as a pen tester, you want to try to do a phishing campaign or do something that will take advantage of the human element. As a security analyst, you want to secure the human element. Make sure everybody's aware. You do awareness campaigns. You do tabletop exercises. You put in safeguards in place in case somebody does click on something inside an email that opens up automatically inside of a sandbox environment and it doesn't actually deploy to the rest of the production environment, or build a really crazy, like in-depth firewall rule or series of firewall rules that will essentially block everything with the exception of a handful of things that are allowed, so that if somebody does accidentally click on something, it's blocked automatically because it's not part of the whitelisted places that they can link on or click on. And then if there are attachments that are attached to an email, if you can actually have those attachments before they're even inside of the inbox of the user, if you can actually scan those attachments to see if the hash values are against, virus total database, if they've been known to be malicious, or so there are so many different things. I don't want to go into the nitty gritty of it, but essentially you're training the human beings, making sure they're aware of everything that's going on, and everything inside of your security engineering and in your security posture revolves around the weakness of a human being. What if somebody accidentally clicks on something because either they weren't trained or they were thinking about something that happened to them? Humans are they're emotional beings, and like somebody could have gotten a call from his family member that they're somebody that they love is in the hospital, and now they're distracted and they're not fully paying attention to what's going on, and they accidentally click on something that they shouldn't have. You need to account for that as the security person. So these things happen all the time, and a strong company, a strong security team really strategizes for this. They account for the fact that human beings are flawed, they can make mistakes, and if something like that happens, we need to be prepared. So user-centric security is a really, really important philosophy. It's a very important concept, and it will make you better, both as defensive security and offensive security, knowing that you can actually exploit the human element or you need to protect the human element. That ends up becoming one of those really key, strong philosophies. And the final philosophy is resilience. And resilience can apply to tech. It can apply to everything that you do with your strategies and the systems that you're working with to make sure they can withstand attacks and they can withstand exploits and recover from attacks and exploits. But it's also you as a human being, as a security professional, as a hacker, you need to be more resilient. Life is not easy. Life will throw constant obstacles at you. Life will constantly test you. That is literally our job as human beings, is to go from one test to another. And your ability to be resilient, your philosophies in life of being resilient, of withstanding the things that happen and growing from them, is what will make or break you as a human being or as a security professional. And your ability to be resilient, your belief system around the fact that there will be challenges and I need to be resilient. I need to persist as I go through these things. That is the key philosophy. Being resilient is so important. Being persistent is a part of resilience. Going through failure after failure and still persisting is resilience. Being resilient, being able to withstand the difficulties of life. And this sounds like a motivational talk at this point. I feel like I'm like talking to myself in a way, but you literally, if you can be resilient and if you can withstand everything that's going on, because the world is crazy, global politics are crazy, local politics are crazy, human beings can be freaking crazy. There are so many things that are going on all the time. The news is constantly throwing bad news at us because they don't make any money if they give good news. They don't retain your attention. They only throw bad news out. So all of that is going to take a toll on you. It'll take a toll on your spirit, on your emotions, and you may want to give up on some days. I do. I know that I have days where I'm like, I don't want to do anything today, but I have to. I choose to be resilient. I choose to work through whatever the BS is that I'm going through because I know that once I do, I will feel better for having done that. If you choose to give in and if you choose to give up, then that will make you even more depressed. Even though life is hard and it's always, most likely I feel like it's always going to be hard, it just becomes a new level of hard. Even when you succeed and you make money and you do all those things, there are new devils for new levels. You know what I mean? Or new level, new devil, whatever the phrase is. But that's basically what's going to happen. There will never be a time where you're not going to have any issues ever. Something is going to always come up. And your ability to be resilient, your ability to persist is going to be the key element that will make you a very strong person, a strong hacker, a strong security professional, but a strong human being. And that's the I'm so glad that this ended up being the last thing that I get to talk to you about, because I feel like this is the perfect note to end this lecture, to end this video. And I just hope that you take it to heart. I hope that you choose to be resilient. I hope that you choose to persist and keep pushing and keep growing, keep learning, because in my opinion, there is no other option. You're either that or you're the other thing where you just give up and you fail flat on your butt and you choose to do nothing. It's like a binary. It's one of those binaries. It's either a 1 or a 0. That's basically what it is. You either choose to push and choose to move forward and choose to be resilient, or you give up. And that's it. There's nothing else. Everything else is learnable, right? If you're resilient, you can learn coding, you can learn hacking, you can learn all these things. If you're not, you give up easily. And then you move on to the next thing, the next approach to your life, and then you give up on that, and then you move on to, and then you give up on that, and you give up, and that becomes your habit. Quitting is a habit, but so is resilience, so is persistence. So if you choose to persist, that becomes a habit. If you choose to be resilient, that becomes a habit, and then you become stronger every single time that you do it. I love the fact that this was the last thing to talk about. So that's it for you, okay? These are the philosophies and traits of a successful hacker. But I'm sure that you can see that these themes actually do apply to life as well. So these are the philosophies and traits of a successful human being. And I hope you found them useful. It's your boy Hank Hackerson at Hank Hacks Hackers, your favorite network and system attacker / protector. We are officially in our new recording studio, which needs to be decorated a little bit more. And if no one else loves you, Hank loves you. I'll see you in the next video. Peace.